So our first section today, e-content made really manageable. David Daghita. I butchered some people's names this morning, but not David, so that's a win.
Comes with the territory.
Daghita from the McKinney Library, this other city in Texas. Over here at 4 in the morning, so. I wake on the energy drinks basically. But yeah, and I forget how big Texas is sometimes and the beauty there is, you know, like you see the sun rising as you're driving and all that good stuff. So it's definitely nice. I'm sure you guys experienced the sunrises as well being here, especially going from another state. Maybe more. But yeah, so I'm here to talk about ERM. How many of you have used it or turned the module on yet? Okay, that's good. Awesome. I figured it was something that I wanted to do because right now, when I look at databases in general, e-content, it's like in an Excel sheet or I'm looking at their Aspen resources page to figure out what I have. It's always changing, right? It's like our licenses are changing, our agreements are, but you have for a year or it's perpetual, so that works out pretty well. But I was like, I would like to have it in Koha as one stop to figure out what I'm doing. And also, one of the reasons that we really wanted to use this was to open it up to other employees on staff to use it. Because instead of me being like, here, let me share this Excel file or share this document or this portal, we can actually just have it in Koha, which we have open all the time on our computers. It's never closed. So that was one of the reasons I really wanted to do that and see what it did. You go to settings and you just type in ERM in your system admin profile and pull it up, turn it on. I only did local on it. I didn't do actually the EBSCO because texture kind of took our EBSCO away. So, we shifted to Gale. But I did find a little thing later on that EBSCO does own Learning Express Hub, which I didn't realize when I was making my EMRM database providers. So that was kind of fun. So, which was good because then I learned I can go back and edit a lot of things and change a lot of things. And it's not set in stone and a lot of things don't get broken. That's always a plus. So I'm just going to log into our Koha instance real quick. It's bad that I never really remember the URL. Go ahead, somewhere. There it is. Okay, Microsoft. So once you have it turned on, you'll see it here in your more section, or it'll be on our homepage. I don't want to click on homepage because we have a lot of passwords on our news feed on the side there, which I don't want a lot of people to see. So this is it. Yeah. So you have your agreements, you can set up that way. So I have the Leo board, cloud library, stuff like that. I didn't just do databases. I wanted it where I could have a lot of the e-content in there, no matter what it was, because I saw this as more of a repository as well. So I could go in and be like, okay, this is through TechShare, or this is what we personally bought. So like LinkedIn Learning, ProQuest, teaching books, websites as well, put in there too. And some of these tie back to the vendor. You can see we can click in there and then you can see that it ties into the subscription, which is great. And we have our licenses, which you can kind of see that. I've not added those to any of the accounts yet. I will. One of the other things too, so when making this available, I had one of our staff members, they were trying to do something with, get together and consolidate some of the databases and see, reports and stuff. This was before the usage was available in the ERM. So what I did was you were able to go in, so like for data axle, you could actually put the passwords and portals information here instead of having some password sheet that everyone can have. So if the user logs in once or twice in Koha and just needs access, you can either give them EMR access or make them a super user. Most of the people using this on our staff are super users, so we have no issues with me just select them as EMR. Which is really nice because didn't have, hey, this is the password in Teams and Slack and all that stuff. Like, go log in and download it on your computer, save it there. You have it later on to go. Now the fun part, making all these packages. So I did all this manually, by the way. It's probably not the best option to do, but I felt like it was more control. If I did mess something up, I could go back in and change it, and I kind of knew how it was going. I don't know if anyone else's looks the same. This is how I kind of did mine. I only put this information in. I use the notes fields a lot just for the URL, just so people could quickly cut and paste and could go into the portal if they needed to, or to the actual just the patron side of it as well. So I did that. This is what I really love right here. You see this? All the titles of all the new databases, all listed there. Yes, that's great. And then if you click on them, you can then get a little more information about it, which is basic right now. But I did put the URLs in there too, just for that purpose. And then the titles here. I did not use import to list or kbar yet. I do plan on probably doing that because I'm kind of at a crossroads right now with ERM. It works great for most of them, Gale, ProQuest, EBSCO, all of those major ones, and a lot of that academic journals are in there when you add a provider, which we'll go into for the reporting. But I just don't know if I want to add all the like LinkedIn learning courses in there, all of our cloud library titles and do all of that. I just don't know how that will look in reporting, if it's worth it to do that. I mean, it would have all of them there, so when I would go back to packages here, and I can click on Cloud Library, I would have a full list of everything, which would be great, but then I don't know if that's too much information. So I'm kind of just like toying that in my head. I'll probably talk with my team about it and be like, hey, should we do this? Should we not do this? Like, what are the pluses and minuses of all this stuff? But so far, it's working pretty good. Got a lot of stuff in there, which is great. And so before all of this, I would be going to our Aspen and going into the research and learn section. And then I would have to just basically figure out, oh, these are all the ones we have right now. This is how I was doing our update of what do we have, what do we don't have, besides looking at agreements and contracts and things like that. Just to get a better view, because I'm kind of visual, so this really helps me to understand like what I'm looking at and what I'm working with. So, but yeah, also this is our new database page. Kelly and Jacqueline built that for us. So using the web resources module, it's pretty nice. But let's go back to the real stuff. Now, this is what I was working on up to Koha-Con because it wasn't working. The part right here when you do a data provider, this is working now, which is great. Request. Oh, there it goes. Okay, I was a little scared. But because I started creating them manually, and I'm like, oh, nothing's working. And then I reached out to Jesse, Laura O'Neill as well. Great at Bywater, LE2, really helped me kind of figure this out and get it working. There's some cron jobs in the background too. But once that happened, we were able to see these little things here. Just great. So you can go there and test it and see that, oh, it's working. The harvesting's working. and then you're able to run it as well, which is, this is the part that I was running into an issue with, was I would just select, I just do a low data run. So these are the jobs, and all of these are different master sheets that you would pull from Counterpie or Sushi. You're gonna log into the portal of each of these. That's what I had to do when we had to do the Texas annual stats, which is a nightmare. Logging into every one of these portals and pulling a year's worth of stats and then breaking out by month, then putting it into an Excel sheet, then doing a pivot table, doing another pivot table to create a graph, to then it becomes put our metabase and do that kind of stuff, visualization. But yeah, so if I clicked in here, I was getting error messages saying that it couldn't connect. So I reached out to Firewire Support and helped us out with that. We got that all connected. It was really nice though. I also want to give a shout out to Jonathan at TS Europe, all the work he's doing on the ERM as well. I use the, I use the registry counter website because it helps you fill out some of the information. When it wasn't working, it helps you fill out some of the information. And you can kind of double check what the vendor gives you on their credential side as well to help you to make sure you're putting, obviously, they already exist. So that's a great little message. Come up to you, show you what you're doing right and wrong. And then you have this kind of runs. I'm running into a little issue with the info base, but I'm not sure exactly where that is. I also did run into an interesting little thing here too. When I first had ProQuest added, I ran the report and it only came back with like 2 searches. I was like, how has only 2 searches happened in ProQuest for a year? This does not make any sense to me. But then I realized after I went into titles and added more of the ProQuest databases that are individually there, and then went into packages, it then populated my report with all of the searches that were happening. So I don't know if that was just because the harvest data I ran maybe was interfering with it, or I actually needed to have them in the title section or to know when it pulls a harvest, these are the correlating stats for that. So just that's a little thing I ran into. So if you feel like, hey, these are not all the stats that I have or data for this database, I know people are using Ancestry, it should not be 0. That might be an issue. So I did see that. So I was happy when that actually filled in. So I did create some reports. I did like 3 basic ones. One that shows the metro type, and one that shows the database monthly, and then regular searches. So if you look at the metric type, it's really nice. Like it has all of what you can pull from the Counterpie reports on the website. I only did the 3 right now. You can lump as many as you want, put them any which way you want to put them. You can select if you only want a searches platform, if you want total item requests, you can limit all of those things when you create the report, which is really nice. And then the best part, you can export it to whatever you want it to be, which is great. Because then you can further manipulate the data to be, which I really liked. And I didn't really know like some of these like access on video demand. I was like, oh, this will not be Sushi. I'm gonna have to do this manually, but it was there. And I was like, this is great. So there's like stuff that I keep finding, which is really great. And then like with EBSCO, I didn't realize they were a subset, like Learning Express is a part of them, even though I can't log into the portal anymore, but it's okay. I can still get the information here, which was nice. How we're going to use that data, I'm pretty sure we're just going to be doing it for the state report, and maybe then kind of adding more landing pages maybe to our database so pages can see like what databases they're using or promoting more as well, because I feel like they're very underutilized for the most part. It's kind of like if you know they're there, they're there. There's such a small fraction of our collection when patrons come in about digital offerings like the video that we have or physical items, those types of things. Whereas we're seeing more people, I think, not using I want to say not using the Gale as much as like a school or an academic person would. I think we're seeing them use more like within learning, the Udemy, those type of things that are more based in their fields to help them progress and get certifications and those types of things. Whereas the student mentality that we used to have, the classical mentality of everyone's using it to search and do papers and theses and stuff, I think it's starting to fall away at the library a little bit. But then again, that just could be because we don't have good publicity on our video. Kind of weigh the odds on that. Hopefully this will help us figure some of that stuff out, where it's not just isolated to the web world. But yeah, I'm really excited about this. I don't know what else is coming for you. Did in 24/11, is there more? I haven't been able to read that help manual yet, so.
Microphone.
It's more of just a question of
the next thing they're working on is a cost per use report, which will allow you to evaluate the usage for your print and electronic titles to see what's getting the most use.
Great.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Another thing too, I do need to go into is add more of our acquisition stuff into this as well. That way that we can kind of tie more of that together. It becomes more cohesive for the person buying and also the person selecting databases, which is me, but I don't actually see all of them. So I let Marcy kind of look at that stuff too on our team. So I kind of know I think it does. Maybe that's just me.
Yeah, it does a little bit.
Other than that, I am very excited about the e-usage though. That was one of the main points that I really wanted to see when 2311 came out, and then to have more of it access in the 2405. Do people feel like they would want to use this more as a module? Is it just, there's just not a lot of time to research, I guess, or that kind of stuff? I mean, that's how I was, but I'm really glad I have a really good team that lets me tinker with stuff like this, so I can kind of pass off some of the other duties I have onto them, so I can do a little of this stuff. It's pretty cool. But yeah, and to me, I feel like to have it rolled into the Koha, like this is just great because it's not like an extra model we were paying for or some add-on from another vendor that you have to pull in. It's right there in Koha to use for anyone just to turn on, which is wonderful. And I'm sure people will come up with other great ideas to use it for, just the reporting or just holding it as a repository. There's probably some more good things out there as well. Looking at you, I'm gonna see you use this, okay? It was tedious though. I will try to do the import from list and see what that looks like. Looks like that workflow looks like. See if it just populates and fills everything correctly. I just went more the manner route this time just to have more control on what's happening. And we don't really have that much in the form of databases because we get everything mostly from TechShare and then some of the other content that we have in there, like the LinkedIn Learning and the newspapers. Actually, I'll think about that. Newspapers will kind of be interesting to see how that looks when it's all listed out. It might be pretty interesting. Do like this view a lot. Just, and you have more titles in here too as well under the data buyers. That's the other thing too. I was looking at the import logs and the manual upload. So for those other databases that are not connected through Sushi, because I asked Data Axle to like reference to solutions, right? I asked them if they had a Sushi plugin or anything like that. They said no. So I was like, okay, I'm definitely gonna have to manually add that. So I was looking at the upload section import logs just to see how I will do that, how that data comes to me from them as I export it. It'll be an interesting time. Gale's in there, so you can kind of see all of this information, all the databases it's touching, all the titles, are in there. Which doesn't
Harvest those titles, or do you import those titles?
anything on here I did was harvested. So I did nothing of manually importing, just adding them was manually what I did, and then harvest everything, because I wanted to make sure that was working correctly, in that fashion. I'm not sure what some of this is, like regular searches versus the platform searches, and I'm sure that's something I can read into more. But one thing I did also enjoy seeing all of this, obviously breaks down by month, and you kind of have a better scope of what's happening. But we all know when you're logging into these different portals and pulling these counterfeit reports, they all use different metrics, right? Like if you're looking at a video site, it's how many plays or streams or sessions. If you're searching an article, it's how many sessions or views or page views. I like how this kind of puts everything into one spot. I can kind of pick and choose sort of to what numbers I want to use easily for state reports. But some of it doesn't link together that well. How are you using your ERM back there? When you just don't know your name.
I'm Danny.
Danny, nice to meet you. D&D hang.
I'm at UT Law, and so we have about 35 to 50 databases that we manage, and we had the EBSCO integration for a while, which was nice, but sort of, as far as our patrons, wasn't very useful. I mean, we could see it pulls in all the titles, you can search and add, and having that update EBSCO was nice, but to what end was that? And, you know, the staff knew the titles, you know, and it wasn't super helpful, and for the price we were paying, so we decided to end that. If that was somehow visible, I guess if you're going into discovery layer, that type functionality, maybe too much, but that was somehow what we were pulling in was somehow visible to our patrons, that would have been worth the cost. We haven't got into the e-usage yet, but I know the technical services director had some issues with the language of agreements and licenses and stuff like that. She's better at that than I am, but we generally don't keep stats because our databases as law resources, we know we're going to use them, so we're pretty solid. So that's kind of where we're at. I'm interested in the future developments and tying it into acquisitions a little closer, because we are really heavy in acquisitions, and that's going to be an important development for us.
I definitely agree with the acquisition part as well. Just especially what Jesse talked about, the cost. It's going to be really nice to see that reflected. And then you can kind of have more of a streamlined view of, do we want to keep this or not, you know, or should we add more packages to this database vendor?
Absolutely.
I also want to give a shout out to Evelyn at Bywater. She also had a lot of questions that I had on the back end too. So, it's very nice.
My question is, wow, it is loud today. Do the titles show up in the catalog? You said I didn't know if I wanted to bring in all those titles. Was it only because it confused this page or the inside the ERM module, or was it because I actually bring it into the catalog?
Just the ERM module is where they'll be listed. So I was just wondering, I don't know if I wanted that whole view to be in there for them to see. And is it just, how many of them are going to be 0 hits, like, and aren't going to actually be anything? So I think I might have to clean that up or import it maybe, just to get the things that I need. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. It'll probably be a mess, honestly. And I'll figure it out. But
Do you know if anybody's actually thinking about using that as a way to bring in bids? Because, I mean, being able to harvest the titles that you have from EBSCO, I mean, that's kind of nice. I might be the last person in the whole world loading records into their catalog, but that is interesting because of switchover.
Yeah, I don't know if that connects into the actual bib side of it.
So you're not saying the bibs that you buy in. This whole one, so the stack side and or over time.
Yes, well, yes, essentially. So if you were in the ERM module and you harvested the titles, I guess automatically brought in the titles into the ERM module, would it also bring into the biblio table, I guess?
You could click on add new title. And then scroll down a little bit. So you can right where it says create record, if you hit that, then you could do the
Oh, yeah, right there is, you can create the records, so we don't want that going to
It's
database.
transferable record right now.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's been approved. Right now, it's almost useless.
this 2405, this is a new feature in 2405.
Okay, so what Jesse's saying is that this little checkbox is a new feature in 2405. And then, so my other question is, do you find that this is something that works well for you, as something that you would like set up for your boss and that your boss would be able to just look at it? Because the position I'm at is doing the grunt work like you're doing, and then just being able to step back and say, okay, boss, you can do it.
Yes, our director really loves data. He analyzes everything possible. So yes.
Just to warn you, he's watching.
Yes, I would like that, so Spencer can go in and just look at that stuff, pull the things he wants to pull, put it into that database, because he's a wizard at that stuff. So I think that is a goal for him to have all that at his fingertips instead of me having to go into all these things and cobble stuff together and then send it to him, the final product. He could go in there and choose what he wants to see, which is really.
He said watching and support.
Oh, nice.
Hi, I had a similar question about the titles, so that's great. I like the idea for my library to be able to bring these things in and not put them in not put them in the bibliographic database, because we sideload into Aspen. But my question is for you. You said there were things that you were thinking about not bringing in, and I was kind of curious on what some of those things might be. I mean, we have Overdrive, we have Canopy, we have Hoopla. Are those the types of things that you're thinking about not bringing in?
Yeah, I was not thinking, but we still use Cloud Library, and then the things like LinkedIn Learning here. I'm kind of hesitant on bringing those in because I just don't know what that looks like. If that's just pulling that from their portal is easy enough than trying to put it in here. It's just too much data or it becomes too overwhelming. I just don't know what it looks like. I probably will just to see what it does, how it looks in Koha, and then take it out because I can delete it, right, Jesse? It's deleted.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. Just want to make sure. Or I don't, thousands of records in there, or titles, I should say. But yeah, that's the only reason. I just don't know how messy it's going to be, or if that's something I really need. Especially because or say like LinkedIn Learning's reporting is not that great. At least pulling their stats doesn't look that good. So I just don't know if having that inside Koha is worth it or not. Because then again, right, every year or every couple months, I'm gonna have to manually upload that information into Koha because it doesn't have a sushi, and I doubt they'll make a sushi connection for it.
How well does the ERM module work with Aspen? Do you have to manage the databases separately in both, or do they link well?
They're separate. So this is just on this side. For the ERM, it's just totally Koha side, just to see their databases connection. So that's it. So that as I come to understand it. And I did use the county registry site, and that's what is pulling in here too. So when you're adding the packages, this thing is actually scraping that website, I think, correct? So even if you don't go to that site and try to find stuff, it'll just automatically. It fills everything in pretty well. I did have to talk to a couple vendors, because the credentials weren't correct, so they helped me through that process too. Because some of them have like pipeline delimiters inside of them, which I didn't know. Yeah, it was a good experience learning all of this and going through this process. I'm just glad I had the time to do it. Because my staff is so good, they help out do a lot of the other things. I can work on little projects like this and kind of see how it goes. Yeah, I think we're on to the preservation next module. Just that's up, so we talk to that. Yeah. Yeah, any other questions?
I think I'm trying to wrap my head around the overall concept of what this is doing. And I got confused when we got to the cloud library portion of it. So in order for this to work correctly, it would have to pull in every title that you have with cloud library. It wouldn't just magically run data. In my head, it's still magic and not understood fully. So you know what I meant?
Yeah, no, I get it. So I'm using it half as a repository, and what I have is all electronic resources, right? So I have everything here. And then the things that are automatically able to be used in packages because of the Sushi connection, I have those set up and pulling that. And then I do want to see Cloud Library, pull those titles and all of those stats and manually put those in to see that. That way on these reports, anything I have in my agreements will show up in one full report. I can pull the stats for all of that. That's kind of how I imagine it. Does that make sense? I don't know. It's weird. It's kind of fragmented in my head, I guess, but that's how I'm viewing it. But yeah, to get the stats of Cloud Library, I would need to import those files in there to get that. But for right now, it's just a place marker for me to know that we have this electronic resource. I don't have to go out to another table or go to our Aspen to see, you know, do we still have that? Is that still there? And then I can also see if it's active, put in those dates too. Whether it's perpetual or it's ending soon.
Yeah, I like the idea of having all the agreements in one place. That's beautiful. And then I think if we play with it, it would probably be keep Cloud Library in separate. That would probably be the only one. And then do all of our other resources. Because you're right, I don't want all those titles.
Yeah, and that's the beauty, right, of the ERM. You can kind of chop it up to what you want it to be, what you want it to see, what you want it to do. I think that's like a co-op. I think.
It's like the whole point.
So far, there's only really been one comment online, and it's from the Tillamook County Library. They say, I like having all of this stuff in one spot. And currently they're manually trying to create a cost per use. So they're looking forward to that feature in the future.
So again, this was more sort of in depth, but more basic. I just wanted more people to see like what ERM can do, whether that's what I've done. Also, you can mutate it; they can do whatever you want it to do. But yeah, I think it goes back to the point is it's a one place dashboard in a sense.
So David, this is an area or an aspect of BOBA that's been relatively foreign to me, and I really haven't touched any of it yet, but I'm starting to understand a lot more of it through you. So with the items, with the databases that you say it pulls in all these titles, what does that mean in the end? I mean, it's a huge mess if it's pulling in all these titles. What would that look like? And is that problematic if it's pulling all that in?
No, I don't think it's gonna be problematic, especially if I don't have to create a record like you have there at the bottom. You can check that box. It's gonna be temporal, right? And at least how I do it now, it'll probably just be temporal. A listing of what I have inside Cloud Library, all the titles, and then it'll know to hit off on those and pull them. Because without that, it doesn't know that that exists in that database. At least that's what I figured out in progress. once I added, I didn't have ancestry in a rest originally in the package under titles, and it wasn't pulling the stats for that. The moment I added it, it pulled all those stats. So I think there's a correlation between what you put in the titles in those packages to get the stats you want out of the vendor. So I do feel like I will do that, and have those titles, but I don't think it'll be too bad. I say it's messy just because kind of lazy, I guess, so I'm just oh man, just titles in here, deal with. But you can easily delete them, I guess, so that would be fine. But yeah, I in my head, it just seems like it's gonna be a lot, but it probably won't be. I'm just being pessimistic, I guess.
Right, and, if you do pull in those titles and you're running those reports, do you have to purge those titles and pull them again to get be an accurate look, or does it update each time you try to grab those stats?
That is really a question, actually. Is it only each time? Because I feel like it's told me that it already exists as a provider, but.
I think we need to distinguish between what the e-holdings module is and what the usage statistics module is. So e-holdings is essentially separate than your usage statistics. E-holdings, where it says local packages and titles, is just telling you what's inside those packages that you subscribe to and then listing all the titles. So you can or not, you can bring the titles in and packages, or you don't have to bring the titles and packages in. E-usage would be completely separate, where you're just looking at statistics. So those holdings don't necessarily have to be in the e-holdings in order to view your statistics from one of those providers. Does that help make sense?
No.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. Danny said different data tables is a good way to picture it as. So you're looking at the statistics of the databases rather than the individual.
So just to restate and clarify, I don't have to bring in those titles.
So I'm trying to clarify what you just said. So I don't have to bring in all of those titles and create those bib records for my holdings for every package in order to pull the statistics for those packages. Is that right?
That's correct.
No, that's good. And that's where I saw, and I was like, oh, is this a correlation between how many titles are coming in, or is it just the harvesting that's happening? So no, that's good. I'm learning right on the fly right now.
That's totally up to you. And in the initial build of the ERM, this goes back to Sarah's question about creating the bibliographic record. In the original build of the ERM, it was creating all the records when you brought them in, and people were like, oh no, we do not want that. So that's why you have that checkbox now that says create the records, because more people were like, we don't want the records for these, we just want to know that they exist and we can come here and see them. So now if you do want the titles, you have the option to say checkbox, let's create a bib record.
Thanks, Jason.
As of now, though, the bibs that are created are kind of garbage. I mean, they're not useful, and hopefully that will improve. I think if what happens in the manual happens in Koha, when it says how it maps, works a little better. That may be more, but right now it's the bibs it creates are not very helpful.
So can I ask, how is this actually linked, or is it linked to acquisitions? It's not linked to acquisitions.
That's our
Next seller event. Okay, because that's the part that I would really like to see.
Run, Jesse, run.
Sorry, we're having a two-way conversation here.
So when the Koha community first proposed the ERM, they built it in stages, essentially. So stage one was to build agreements, licensings, and e-holdings, because that doesn't touch any other piece of Koha. So that means, as far as quality assurance, as long as the code works, we could push it quickly into Koha. So those were the first three that we got. Then the big push was e-usage, right? That came in 2311. So we could bring all of that, the data providers in. Next is the cost per use, and then acquisitions. Acquisitions is going to be the biggest hurdle because now we're touching other pieces of existing code in Koha. So there's going to be a lot of discussion and QA testing to make sure that it's not breaking any other piece of acquisitions in conjunction to acquisitions 2.0, where, you know, we're trying to make it much easier for larger systems and making acquisitions easier to connect to outside vendors. So that's the next big push, is connecting to the acquisitions module.
So I have a question. So all of our databases run through the state library. So if I wanted to look this up and then just run stats for my libraries in my region, is that something, where's that set at? Like, is it in the sushi connection where I could limit it to a subsection of?
That's a good question, actually, because we're two branches, but we're all of our, from Texture, our databases that come from the state, they're just under one user. So I don't have really broken that out.
Okay, so like all of our databases run through the state library. Is there a way for us to only pull a subset of the usage data just for our users from that larger connection?
That's what I was gonna say. You probably have to contact the state library. My guess would be to contact the state library and see if you could get,
Right now, it's not.
yeah. So like when David was showing the usage where you could do the manual upload, that would probably be, they could probably just extract from just your area or region, and then you could do the manual upload versus the, creating it from a sushi connection.
If there's some more questions, I guess that's good, and I hope no one's more confused by what I'm saying. I think we should start.
David, great job. I'm also a visual learner, so as much as we could talk about this, the last koha-US conference, it's great to see like actual data in there, actual reports being run. So for me, visually, this has been really helpful, and I think it's just going to grow bigger. And I hope everyone has David's email, so if you need help, he's ready to help probably.
Totally won't.
Thank you, David.